So now I will start. The most popular person to whom the questions are addressed is Jekaterina. And of course we will not ask all the questions to Jekaterina because that would become a kind of interrogation, and this is not what we want to do. But still, basically, one question that's, I think, and it's, some of them are related, so I apologize if I generalize, but I would like to ask Jekaterina one question out of the many that we have, and that is related to the some kind of tension that some people in the audience are seeing between the central bank policy and the Lithuanian government policy, well, I should say Lithuanian government policy primarily, of welcoming the FinTechs and creating favorable conditions for the FinTechs. And the question the person asking is why FinTechs are so welcomed by the state institution and so much unwelcomed by commercial bank. Is it fair to call us a FinTech country in such a situation? What could you say? Let's see, maybe this one is better.
Yeah, probably somebody needs to create a gateway, and somebody needs to be a gatekeeper. So maybe banks are providing this gatekeeping activity. But I'm joking, of course. I think that it just coincided that banks operating in Lithuania right now, the major banks, they were fined, and were fined quite severely. And it forced them to rethink actually their strategy, especially regarding onboarding of FinTechs. It's the first reason, and as our market is really small, we have, as we sometimes joke, 2.5 banks operating in Lithuania, but again, it is a joke. And the other reason, I would say that FinTech have some bad repute in some sense, because we sometimes think about cryptocurrencies as FinTechs, and we very well know that cryptocurrencies have quite a bad reputation. So it's I would say yes, probably banks are a bit more cautious than they could be, but I wouldn't tell that it is like a situation with no-go, that there is no chance to open a bank account. Yes, it is quite complicated, but it's not totally impossible.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, and of course we've had experience also ourselves that no, it's not at all impossible, but of course the question I think is legitimate. At the same time, the answer probably is clear. This cannot be a one-way street, or otherwise we risk the country's reputation, and then it will not be a FinTech country because we won't have all the other benefits that are necessary to create it. Lina, may I ask a general question, which was also very popular, and which is, I think, but still, it's really interesting to hear different experiences, and we'll be hearing them, I'm sure, during networking also. What has been the best learning outcome so far of COVID-19 in your organization, or generally? You are chairing the Chamber of Commerce, so you're seeing a lot of businesses.
Yes, I guess I will have two-folded answer, and I'll try to be brief. I guess, first of all, representing Intrum and the credit management industry, I must say we had quite a lot of insights during the times of COVID. Firstly, because credit management industry per se operates in anti-cyclic economical environment, so it can be presumed that like tough times brings better opportunities, which I guess fair to summarize they do to an extent, of course. But what we have seen so far in terms of let's say B2B relationship, we have seen that when the times are good, nobody is really so worried about the cash movements. and because they can sustain certain, amount of capital being frozen, etc. So what we can see quite a lot in the industry, and that's especially in Lithuania, I must say, but consistent across the Baltics and I guess the other Nordic countries. There are much more interest from the companies to help manage their cash flow in terms of really earlier reminders, collection, etc. So the cash is the king, of course, in the terms, especially in the times of COVID, and really survival techniques are taking place at the time. Also, it's important to also monitor the consumer trends, and we know that there was a lot of turbulence in terms of employment issues and other reasons why people maybe could not pay their bills or handle their finance as well as they might have expected. So it was very important to see what measures are being taken place to allow this grace period for people to recover, etc., etc. So we also have seen that in our industry, because there was a lot of proactive reach out from the debtors to really find the solution that would be COVID specific, let's put it this way, which shows that we really have an increasing awareness of people and financial education and how people treat their funds and their personal finances. And we really, as an industry, collaborating with a few other organizations, are very making our mission to continue to improve the financial education in order to prevent negative consequences when it comes to personal finance management. So they're very, I guess, generic trends that we can see in our industry that will, I guess, continue to be quite important going forward. And from the chamber's perspective, I must say that it's a very big disruptor for some of the businesses, of course, especially on the business models that are based on real contact and networking, etc. You pretty much have to rethink on what's the purpose and what you're doing. So it's, as I said in my opening speech, it's very great to see that a lot of people are still really looking forward to live contact, but it was a challenge to really think of how we, what we do in the future, really. And I think it's going to be very important topic for many of the businesses to see how this trend has reshaped the business for good, maybe, or at least the foreseeable future.
Thank you. Thank you. That was a detailed presentation. Thank you very much. Vytenis, now there's a question to you which I will allow myself to expand a little bit, because we in Lithuania, we are very international. And of course, if you ask any person on the street, they will be interested and they will have an opinion on some of the things you mentioned. And I will pick two, the Brexit and the presidential election in the US. So you said 50 shades of we. So what will be the impact of for Lithuania? The Brexit, hard versus semi-hard, or whatever we can call the agreed Brexit, and Trump versus Biden, please.
These are tough questions. I mean, all the problems that we had before COVID-19 pale in comparison to what we had, and before February, when virus was taking grip of China, well, Brexit and trade war were the main topics, and they moved the markets, and some people were even expecting a recession due to these reasons. Now these factors seem not as significant in comparison to what we're living through. There is a severe risk of no-deal Brexit currently, because UK is taking a very tough chance. However, this has been such an old topic that probably most businesses that have any significant relation with the United Kingdom have taken care of it, or it's their own fault by this time, because there really has been 4 years to prepare for any disruptions happening in that front. So yes, there would be a damage if countries are not reaching an agreement, and the most sticking points were the fair competition policy, because UK wants to compete illegally, and that's their the whole rationale for Brexit. They want to have advantageous competing position with the EU, and the EU does not want to allow that. And the second point is the fisheries. EU wants to keep fishing in UK waters, and as they did for the past 40 years. And UK also does not want that, and for some magical reason, that is a very important thing in Europe. Regarding trade wars, I think, and Trump versus Biden, I think, well, if Trump wins, we'll have 5 more years of very heightened political uncertainty and probably fraying US and EU political relations, and it's probably not beneficial for us. However, the adverse stance towards China from the US is probably cemented by now. It's probably the only issue both Republicans and Democrats agree on, is to have a tough stance on China. So Biden victory or Trump victory will not change probably much in that regard. You'd probably just have a little bit more predictable policy from the US side if Biden wins, but overall geopolitical priorities would not change. Overall, today's probabilities from 538, one of the most popular betting sites and forecasting sites of politics, say that Biden is set to win by 71% probability, but it's anyone's game, really.
Yeah, thank you. That would be a tough question to answer, who wins. Now we have time for one question from audience, a live question. I mean, take the chance. I think that will be the first question since March asked in an audience. So making history. No questions. Well, I'll use Slido then, but this is the chance to lose because we are having only, 3 minutes left. Anyway, so maybe since, as I said, Jekaterina was the most popular, so I will direct a question to you, if I may. And there was a question about the AML Excellence Center. Maybe you can tell a little bit more about it, because there's a person asking is how it is going to mature the local industry and how it is going to help, how it is going to work.
Yeah, I just noticed that we just exchanged the mic, and that's how exactly the virus is spreading. So we need to wash our hands afterwards. Yeah, AML Center, so just briefly, I can expand really and speak about that for a very long time. But the main major idea of this center is to get the possibility to sit around the table for both industry, and by industry, first of all, I mean banks, and why banks? We usually get the question, why only banks? Why not maybe EMIs and PIs or some other companies? The reason behind that is that banks have this major competence about money laundering. They have seen a lot, they see a lot, because about 90% of all the payment transactions, they are taking place through the banking system. So it would be a possibility for banks, for FIU, our FIU, for us as a supervisor, for policy, for our police and even prosecutor's office to sit around the table and to speak about what is happening, what are the typologies of the criminal activities that are taking place in the country, and how we can tackle these risks by maybe developing common solutions, which I spoke about briefly during my presentation. So this would be like one task of the competence center to share information and to work on common solutions. The other direction would be to develop maybe some learning programs for AML specialists, some conferences, etc., in order for them to be like well informed about the requirements and about the expectations and etc. The other direction which we will be developing in the future, and what is taking place in UK actually, this format is a good possibility for some police officer to come to the banks and to ask information about a specific person or about a specific company that this police officer thinks that is engaging in some criminal activity. So it is really a simple format to collect all the necessary information just in one day. So that's maybe in a nutshell like what we expect from this AML center.